Hi viewers, welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Adiola Fayon, and this is our inspiration segment where we like to interview people that we think that their life or whatever they are doing is inspirational. And today, starting out, we have two groups of people that we like to interview. One of them is a group called the Linubians. They'll come right after this, but first of all, I like to talk with somebody that we also think is very, very inspirational. Her name is Jacqueline Mougoue. She's actually a Ph.D. candidate in history at Purdue University in Indiana, and she recently completed a one-year research in Cameroon. Jacqueline, welcome to Sahara TV.
Hello,
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing fine.
Okay, so Jacqueline, first of all, we want to talk about your dissertation work in Cameroon, and then we'll talk about your time in Cameroon. How about that?
Okay,
Okay, so
sounds good.
can you tell us a little bit about the dissertation work that you went to do in Cameroon?
Okay. My work was actually focusing on gender nation building in the country at that time from 1960 to 1982. So I was actually focusing on the important roles that ordinary and average Anglophone women played in helping to further the country at that time. So my main argument was that women's expressions of what it means to be a proper woman or a proper citizen at that time was actually important.
Okay, so basically the role of women is what you were focusing on, right?
Yes.
And what are some of the things that you found out when you were there?
Well, I found out that a lot of times when we think about politics, we think about, the people who are state officials. And I discovered that women's expressions within the domestic spheres was also very important. So for example, what women was wearing was important to the nation at that time. What women were actually making at home in terms of food was also important. So you had states officials at that time who would do speech tours, and they would tell women, do not wear short skirts because it looks bad for us, or you should cook this type of food because we are now a new nation, and so as a new country, we need women to cook a particular type of food. So I actually found out that women's household tasks were actually important to the broader gender nation building goals.
I see. And some of the things that you found out, is this what you were hoping that you will find? Were you surprised in any of your findings?
Well, actually, before I left, I did a lot of research. I read a lot. So I actually had a broad hypothesis before I actually left. Now, what actually ended up happening was I was going to focus on Francophone women only, but for various reasons, I actually decided to switch to focusing on Anglophone women. So my project sort of shifted a bit.
Okay. And so what are you going to do with these findings? What do you hope to achieve with this research that you just concluded?
Well, right now I'm finishing my writing, and my grand goal is to hopefully have the book published.
Okay. But the results that you found when you were in Cameroon, did they support your hypothesis?
Yes, it did, because like I actually mentioned, I spent a couple years of doing research before I actually left. So when I got there, I knew exactly what I actually wanted to look for. There were a few things that came up that I was pretty much a bit surprised by. So for example, women's speech at that time was actually very important, and that's not something that I had actually looked at beforehand.
What do you mean women's speech?
Well, I found a lot of research in the archives with people discussing about women who actually gossip. So state officials at this time would do speech tours, and they would tell women that you actually gossip too much, and the fact that you're doing this is actually ruining country. And so that's not something I actually was expecting to find. And so I argue that at that time they were using women's speech to express other fears. And so at this time, women's gender roles were actually changing a bit. Women were starting to go to school. They were getting involved in politics. And so by arguing that women are talking too much or that women gossip too much, it was a way to sort of tame them.
So, but is there much difference between what's expected of women in Cameroon and, let me say, other places like here in the U.S.? I'm sure there are, but if you can just mention some things that stood out to you that, wow, even though it's this way here in the U.S., this is how it is in Cameroon.
Well, at that time in the 1960s, the country had just become independent from the French and also the British. So citizens were trying to figure out who they were at that time. And one of the issues that was really important was women's gender roles. So women were expected to start to go to school and to be, quote unquote, modern, but at the same time, they also had to follow their traditional values also. So they had to sort of balance the two.
I see. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your article. You said that your time in Cameroon increased your bride price.
Yes,
What do you mean by that?
Pardon me?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
I meant that at that time when I was doing research, people were quite surprised to see that I was there to be
That you know how to cook?
Yes, people were actually surprised that I know how to cook. Well, actually, they were not shocked. They expected me to be able to cook.
Okay.
But when they discovered that I could cook the
Cameroonian
food of my
food.
country,
Yeah.
people would joke that my bride price has now increased because my food was very good. But no one actually linked my bride price to having gone to school.
Oh, wow. Okay, so, and you said when you were in Cameroon, first of all, it was hard for people to, some people were saying that you're American. They were not like putting together that you are actually a Cameroonian, despite the fact that you have a Cameroonian last name. But then you took advantage of that. Tell me about that.
Well, for example, when I would do interviews, some women were willing to talk to me more when they thought that I was actually American, so they thought that I didn't know what I was doing, and so they were willing to actually
Educate you.
Yes, to actually educate me. But if they thought I was born, I was from there, and I was actually born there. But if they thought that I had been living there for a while, they sort of would look at me and say, well, why are you coming and you are wanting to actually speak to me?
So they expected you to have known answer to those things if you
Yes.
were a true Cameroonian, so to say.
Yes.
And you said that there were times that you felt belittled because of your gender when you were in Cameroon.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, because when I would try to interview women who were older than 50, their husbands would always come up to me and say, what are you doing? What type of research are you doing? Shouldn't you be getting married and having kids now? Why is your research important? Why do you want to speak to my wife? And so they would actually start to offer to find men for me to get married to instead of, doing my
Really?
research. And so they didn't take me very seriously sometimes.
They were offering you men. Did you find any good-looking guy in Cameroon?
Well, that wasn't my focus there.
But you also said that you consider yourself an African feminist.
Yes, I do.
What do you mean by that?
Well, to say that I'm African feminist, you sort of have to understand the American version of it. And in the U.S., I do believe that the American version of it is very militant a bit, and an African feminist believes that goals and certain policies can be made, but alongside with men, and they also value motherhood, and they also value certain things like, you know, cooking and also cleaning. So even though I believe that I am a feminist, I do value these other things too. So I also cook. I want to be a mother one day. So I don't see those things as being an obstacle.
I see. And you were telling me just before we went on that most ladies your age, you're 30, that most ladies your age by now are expected to have been married and have kids, and that's
Yes.
why many of them are approaching you, saying that why are you not married by now?
Yes.
Also, I want to know what other assumptions they expected, what other things they expect women to do. In Cameroon, you've established that they expect you to know how to cook by now. Is there anything else that they expect to be the role of women in Cameroon?
Well, I believe that many women have been going to school. So there's this expectation that women can be modern, but they have to be traditional too. So what
Okay.
that means is you can go to work, you can make money, but when you get home, you have to
You
take
still
care
have
of
to be a
kids.
woman.
Yes, yes, you have to
You
also
have to
cook.
cook,
You have to do both
clean.
of these things.
Okay. And would you argue that there should be more that should be expected of women? And what would you argue that women can also, the roles that women can also play?
So are you saying that?
I'm saying, would you argue that there should be more to being a woman than just cooking and cleaning? Uh,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
I
so,
do. I do believe that if a woman doesn't want to get married to have kids, that doesn't make her less of a
for a
woman,
woman.
and that she just has a different life path.
Okay. All right. Well, Jacqueline, overall, did you enjoy your time in Cameroon?
I did. I very much did enjoy my time. I did a lot of research. I'm planning on going back next year to focus on my future projects, and so I will be there a lot more.
What about in terms of politics? Do you think women should also step up and be more involved, or should we? Because it looks like men are more into politics. Do you think women can make a difference? Do you think women should get involved in politics?
Yes, I do think that women should actually get involved, but right now there are certain obstacles in the way for women to actually be fully involved. So I'm not saying that there aren't women who are involved now, but the general idea is that women overall are not very much involved in politics. I would argue that they're involved in politics at the local levels.
Okay. So, Jacqueline, when is your book coming out? Do you know?
Oh, well, I need to actually completely finish writing first. And so I would hope that it will be coming out in a year or two.
And when people buy your book, just a summary of what we should expect to find out when we read your book.
So my book would be about gender nation building in West Cameroon. So it would be focusing on actually Anglophone women from 1960 to 1982. And some of the themes that I would focus on would be beauty, fashion, cleaning, motherhood, and my overall argument would be that all of these issues were important to helping to build the nation.
All right, Jacqueline, thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And I'm so happy that now for your bride price, you will get herds of cows and goats. And
Thank you.
you should invite me when you're doing this wedding. I like to see it. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Viewers, that has been Jacqueline Mougoue. She's a PhD candidate at University of Purdue in Indiana. So she's our inspiration for today. Coming up, we have two ladies that are also inspirational, and they are known as Lee Nubians. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I don't really believe in it.